The chair is pleased now to recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Doggett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We today pursue two issues. One is how to address with new legislation a situation where a future president might decide to reverse himself or herself the way President Trump did and not make available tax returns as all recent candidates for president have done. And the second is to look at the basis and the process under a law that is almost a century old that gives the chairman of this committee the authority to review tax returns, and if this committee so decides that it is in the public interest for this committee to vote to send that information to the House where it can eventually be made a matter of public interest. Seeing the president's reversal, his entanglement with interest abroad and at home, seeing reports that he and his family may have benefited in excess of $1 billion from the tax bill that he forced through here without a single person from his administration coming to testify in favor of it or explain it. Seeing all that, I moved on 6 different occasions in this committee over the last 2 years to use 6103 to obtain the president's tax returns. And each time there were excuses and cover up from our Republican colleagues as they obstructed and protected the president. Now, the president apparently had enough concern about this that he did have a review made of his tax returns. The review was made by the president's own lawyers, in fact, from a firm that proudly declares that it was the Russia law firm of the year that made the review of his returns, noting not only that he had personal returns, but more than 500 separate entities that stretch from Azerbaijan to Panama. And they gave him a all clear, his personal law firm, of that. I suppose that is a kind of review, but it is not one that inspires public confidence. The Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, Charles Rettig, before he was appointed, said that, quote, for wealthy individuals, individual tax returns sometimes only provide a brief financial overview linked to numerous other conclusions and entities. To fully understand the financial status of Trump, one would likely need to see returns for multiple years, the work papers for the individual returns, and the returns for numerous related entities. Mr. Rosenthal, do you agree with that statement?
Yes, I do.
And while having a president with such a sprawling business empire may be unprecedented, we know there are others. Some have already announced as possibilities as independents or Democrats for the 2020 election. Every president, vice president, and candidate for the future, I think, should be held to the same standard that we would apply to President Trump. Mr. Bookbinder, do you believe that H.R. 1 should be strengthened to include a requirement that all candidates disclose their business entities?
Yes, I think recent events make clear that that is really important.
And Mr. Rosenthal, might such information inform how much weight is given to a given policy of the President of the United States?
Yes, those type of disclosures would inform Congress's weight and deference to executive actions.
We know that the President plays a central role in tax policy, that his Office of Management and Budget offers a review of tax regulations, that he lobbies for and influences and signs legislation, that the Treasury Department that he appoints plays a big role. With these multiple roles that the President plays on tax policy, is it essential, Mr. Rosenthal, that we have his returns to review the impact on those policies?
Yes, I believe the regulatory process and the efforts that the President and discretion the President has warrant the Congress and this committee understanding what financial interests he might yet have.
Thank you. And Professor Yin, an important point, while our focus in this committee is the tax system and the public confidence in that system, and whether this president is using his office for personal gain, the responsibilities, when you talk about the legitimate purpose for using 6103, doesn't that extend to many other issues, such as his possible violation of the Emoluments Clause, his entanglement with Russians and Saudis and others who he may be doing business with or for? because this committee has a responsibility broader than just its own jurisdiction over the tax code.
Congressman Doggett, I believe you're right, and that's simply because Congress right now has delegated strictly, exclusively to the tax committees this ability to inform the public about tax return information. So I believe that the legitimate purpose for the Ways and Means Committee would extend to a constitutional responsibility of Congress and not limited to the legislative jurisdiction of the committee.
And just one final one, Mr. Chairman, and Professor Yin, is it also not true that this committee, and should it decide to make these records public, has powers that even the special counsel, Mr. Mueller, does not have?
Yes, that's a very valid point, and that's, again, another issue down the road, which is that the special counsel can disclose tax return information only in limited circumstances, such as a judicial or administrative proceeding. If he were to issue a report, it's not clear whether tax return information that might be critical to his conclusion in the report could in fact be revealed to the public, even assuming the Attorney General were to allow the report to be revealed at all. So that is another issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just would ask unanimous consent to include in the record the testimony of Public Citizen concerning its support for the disclosure of presidential and vice presidential tax returns, and the important report of Americans for Tax Fairness, the case for Congress obtaining Trump's tax returns.